Hello, Algebra 2. This is our video key for lesson 8.7, which had to deal with dividing rational expressions. Remember the steps on that? We had the two fractions. We were dividing them. We left the first fraction alone. We took the reciprocal of the second one and ended up multiplying the first fraction by the reciprocal of the second fraction. After that, we factored each numerator and denominator completely, rewrote it as one single fraction, canceled out common factors, and simplified. So let's get going with question number 1. Number 1, we have 20 over 4x divided by 18 over 9. So our first step, we rewrite this first fraction as is, but we reciprocate the second fraction. So we just flip it. So 18 over 9 becomes 9 over 18. We change our operator from a division to multiplication. So we're now multiplying our first fraction by a reciprocal of our second fraction. So we can rewrite it as 1. I think actually our next step would have been to factor each one completely, but since each term was completely factored, we didn't have to worry about that step. So now we start simplifying. But we can rewrite 20 over 4 is 5 over 1. We can rewrite 9 over 18 is 1 over 2. I believe that's all the simplifying we can do. So we're going to be left with 5 over, and what's left on the bottom? 2x. So there's our answer for number 1, 5 over 2x. Number 2, we have 9b over 8 divided by 3b over 11. So we're going to rewrite our first fraction as is. We're going to reciprocate our second fraction. So that becomes 11b over 3b. We're going to change our operator from division to multiply. So now we'll rewrite these as one fraction. 9b times 11b, that is 99b squared. 8 times 3b is 24b squared. I'm sorry, just b, not b squared. 8 times 3b is 24b. So now we need to simplify. If I were to pull a common factor out of top and the bottom, 99 and 24, I can pull a 3 out of there. So I'll have 33 over 8. If I have b squared over b, I can just rewrite that as b in the numerator. So I'm going to have 33b over 8 for my answer to number 2. Number 3, 4x plus 16 over 3 divided by x squared plus 10x plus 24 over 3. First thing we're going to do is we're going to rewrite this. We're going to rewrite our first fraction as is. We're going to reciprocate our second fraction. 3 over x squared plus 10x plus 24. We change our operator to a multiplication sign. Now let's factor everything. We're going to factor a 4 out of our numerator here. We factor 4 out, we get 4 times x plus 4. That'll be over 3. We're going to multiply that by 3 over, we need to factor this trinomial here. Looks like that'll be x plus 6 times x plus 4. Now that we've completely factored, we can rewrite this as one fraction now, if we're multiplying. And we can start simplifying, see if there's anything we can cross out that's on the top and the bottom. 3 jumps out of me. I got 3 on the top and the bottom. I also have the factor of x plus 4 on the top and the bottom. So what's left? 4 in the numerator and x plus 6 in the denominator. So our answer to number 3 is 4 over x plus 6. Number 4, we're given 2m cubed plus 6m squared over 2m squared. We're dividing that by m plus 3 over 5m. Our first step, rewrite our first fraction as is, reciprocate our second fraction, and change our operator. So first fraction as is 2m cubed plus 6m squared all over 2m squared. And we're going to reciprocate our second fraction, so we get 5m over m plus 3, changing our operator from division to multiplication. Now we're going to factor each one of these completely. So I'm going to take a greatest common factor out of this one here. That'll be 2m squared. And that'll leave me with m plus 3 in my numerator, taking my greatest common factor out. My denominator is going to be 2m squared. I'm going to be multiplying that by 5m over m plus 3. Well, if I'm multiplying those two fractions together, they're fully factored, so I can just extend that division bar over and rewrite it as one fraction. Now we got to look for some stuff to cancel out. Right away, I see 2m squared is on top and bottom. I got the factor of m plus 3 on the top and the bottom. That'll leave me with just 5m for my answer to number 4. Here's number 5. We're given 6x plus 30 over x plus 5 plus 8x over 2. I'm sorry, that's not plus. Division. So divided by 8x over 2. We're going to rewrite our first fraction as is, 6x plus 30 over x plus 5. We're going to reciprocate that second fraction, so it becomes 2 over 8x. We're going to change our operator from division to multiplication. So now we're going to factor each numerator denominator. The only thing we can factor is this numerator right here. So we're going to pull out a common factor of 6. So we'll get 6 times x plus 5. Now everything's fully factored, so we can go ahead and write this as one fraction. And let's start looking for some things we can cancel out. Well, I can cancel out my factors of x plus 5 and x plus 5. I can, let's see, I got a common factor of 2 here. So my 8 can turn into a 4, and I have, again, a common factor of 2. So my 4 becomes a 2, and my 6 becomes a 3. So what do we got left? I have 3 in the numerator left. I have 2x in the denominator left. So there's my answer for number 5, 3 over 2x. Here's number 6. We have 2p squared plus 6p over p minus 4. And that is divided by p squared plus p minus 6 over 4 minus p. So our first steps, we're going to rewrite our first fraction as is. We're going to reciprocate our second fraction, 4 minus p over p squared plus p minus 6, and we're going to change that operator from division to multiplication. Now we're going to factor everything we can completely. So I'm going to take a greatest common factor of 2p out of the top, and I'll get p plus 3 over p minus 4, and I'm going to multiply that by 4 minus p over, if I factor that trinomial, I'm going to get p plus 3 times p minus 2. All right, now that I'm fully factored, I can go ahead and make this one fraction. Let's look for some things I can cancel out. I can cancel out the p plus 3. And that looks like it for now, but I'm going to show you a little trick here. So I'm going to rewrite this. Get some room here. So I have 2p times 4 minus p. That'll be over p minus 4, p minus 2. That's where I'm at right now. I'm going to pause and write this down if you need to. I'm going to erase this work here so I can move that fraction up top. I've got 2p times 4 minus p over p minus 4, p minus 2. Okay, so I've rewritten that fraction up top. I'm actually going to factor a negative 1 out of this 4 minus p up here. Let me show you why. So this will be time when I factor that negative 1 out, I change the sign on everything in here. Okay, so I factor the negative 1 out, the 4 becomes a negative 4. When I factor the negative 1 out of a negative p, it becomes a positive p. Let's rewrite that again over p minus 4, p minus 2. Now, why did I do that? Because now I can flip-flop this one around here. And I'll get 2p times the negative 1. When I flip-flop this, it becomes p minus 4. And by doing that, I was able to simplify out another factor. So now I can cancel out that p minus 4. So I'm going to have negative 1 times 2p on the top, which means I will have a negative 2p on the top. And that's going to be over p minus 2. So my answer to number 6 is negative 2p over p minus 2. Number 7, we have 1 over x minus 3 divided by 7 over 12 minus 4x. So our first step is to rewrite this. We're going to write our first fraction as is. We're going to reciprocate our second fraction, so it becomes 12 minus 4x over 7. And finally, I change my operator from division to multiplication. And now I'm going to factor everything I can. This fraction is fully factored. Nothing I can do there. However, I can factor a greatest common factor out of my numerator here. I can factor a 4 out. That would be 4, that'd be 3 minus x. That's over 7. So now that we're fully factored, I'm going to go ahead and rewrite this as one fraction. I'm going to look for some things I can cancel out. Not right away, I can't. But if you remember, oh, there should be times up here. If you remember what we did in the last problem, I was able to factor a negative 1 out of here. So let's just rewrite this. I got 4 minus x over 7 x minus 3. So that's what this becomes. If I factor a negative 1 out of here, I'm going to get 4 times a negative 1. When I pull that negative 1 out, I can change the sign out of everything in here. So my positive 3 becomes a negative 3, and my negative x becomes a positive x. And that'll all be over 7 times x minus 3. Okay, I'm going to erase the top part of my work here. Give me some more room. So let me rewrite that. I get 4 times a negative 1, which is negative 3 plus x, over 7 x minus 3. Okay, I can erase the rest of this now. Now, why did I do that? Because I can now flip-flop this here. And when I do, it's 4 times negative 1. Negative 3 plus x is the same as x minus 3. If I just flip those around, I'm going to write that over 7 times x minus 3. So right away now, you can see since I've done that, I can cancel out those factors of x minus 3. So my answer is going to be, well, 4 times negative 1 is negative 4 over 7. So my answer becomes negative 4/7. Number 8, we have 5n minus 15 over 5n minus 25. And that's divided by n minus 3 over 6. First thing we're going to do is we're going to rewrite this. We're going to rewrite our first fraction as is, but we are going to reciprocate our second fraction. So that becomes 6 over n minus 3. We're going to change our operator from division to multiplication. Next step, we're going to factor everything we can. This fraction here, numerator and denominator are already factored, but here we can pull a greatest common factor out of the numerator and the denominator. So let's go ahead and do that. Greatest common factor of the numerator is 5, so I'll rewrite that as 5 times n minus 3. And denominator also happens to be 5. So when I pull a 5 out of there, I will get n minus 5. So that is factored, and we multiply by 6 over n minus 3. So now that I've factored everything, I'm going to go ahead and rewrite that as one fraction and look for some things to cross out. But right away, I can see my 5s can go. They're on top and bottom. I have a factor here of n minus 3 on top and bottom. So I can eliminate those, and I am left with 6 over n minus 5. And that is my answer for number 8. Number 9, we are given from x plus 10 over x squared minus 3x plus 2. And that is divided by 9x squared plus 90x over 9x minus 9. So what we're going to do first is we're going to rewrite this. We're going to rewrite the first fraction as is, x squared minus 3x plus 2, but we are going to reciprocate the second fraction, so 9x minus 9 over 9x squared plus 90x. And when we do that, we change our operator from division to multiplication. Now we need to factor each numerator, each denominator. This first numerator is already as simplified as can be. However, our denominator, we can factor that to x minus 1, x minus 2. I'm going to multiply that over here. We can pull a greatest common factor of 9 out of our numerator. That'll leave us with 9 times x minus 1. And we can pull looks like a 9 out of that one as well. We'll get x squared plus 10. Now we fully factored everything. Supposed to be a 9. Oh, that was supposed to be an x there. I'm sorry. So I can pull an x out of here. I messed up something there. So this was be 9x squared plus 90x. So now when I'm factoring this denominator here, I can factor out a 9x as my greatest common factor. So I'll pull a 9x out of there. I'll get x plus 10. Okay, so here is my fully factored expression. So I can extend that division bar over and look for things to cross out. I can cross out x plus 10. I can cross out x minus 1. And I can cross out a 9. So what am I left with? Well, I'll be left with a 1 in the numerator because I crossed everything out. In the denominator, I will have x times x minus 2. So there's my answer for number 9, 1 over x times x minus 2. Here's number 10, our final problem in the set, and we have x squared minus 3x minus 4 over x plus 1, and that is divided by x squared minus 8x plus 16 over 8x minus 32. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to rewrite this, rewrite our first fraction as is, and we're going to reciprocate our second fraction, so we'll get 8x minus 32, and that's going to be over x squared minus 8x plus 16. Since we reciprocated our second fraction, we now change our operator from division to multiplication. Now we factor each numerator and denominator. So we're going to factor this first numerator. We will get, looks like x minus 4x plus 1. Our denominator here is already factored at x plus 1. We're going to multiply that by, I can take a greatest common factor of 8 out of my numerator, and that'll leave me with x minus 4. And my denominator, when I factor that, is going to be x minus 4, x minus 4. Yep. So now that I've factored everything, I'm going to go ahead and rewrite this as one fraction and start looking for some things I can cancel out. I can cancel out that x minus 4 and that x minus 4. Cancel out x plus 1 and x plus 1. I can cancel out that x minus 4 and that x minus 4. And what's left? My answer is 8 for number 10. Number 10, the answer is 8. Hopefully going through these one at a time helped you get unstuck if you were struggling on any of the problems. If some are still giving you trouble, please email me and we will work those out together.